Well, hi there, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And we're back again. I'll try to avoid bloopers this time. Let's see if I can do that. But tonight we are going to talk about one of my favorite little movies of the aughts. This is 2006 Wicked Little Things. One of the 8 films to die for, and it is. I love this movie so much. It is just cool as absolute all hell. Now, this movie was released in 2006. It is one of the first roles by Chloë Grace Moretz. It also one of the first roles for Scout Taylor-Compton and Laurie Heuring, and it's got Ben Cross in it and Geoffrey Lewis. And yeah, there you go. So this movie starts off in 1913, where we see um, a mine, and there are a bunch of children being forced to work in this mine. They're all around the age of 6 to 12, 13, 14, and they're being forced to work in this mine in 1913 up in Pennsylvania by this obvious child slavery, child labor thing, individual, who the rich cat who owns all the land in the area. And they have this little girl named Mary, whom they make because she's real small, so she can fit through one of the little tunnels, and they send her in there to set the dynamite. And she then, there's like quake activity like there is in mines, and she gets scared and gets up in a little corner of the tunnel, and the guy from up there, he's like, so it's just a little mountain kid, it doesn't matter, set the fuse. So that was crappy in and of itself. And they set the fuse, and it blows up, kills her. The whole mine collapses, kills all these kids. There's probably like about 25 of them. Yeah, 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 about 25 of them. And so we then fast forward to today, and we have Karen and her kids, Emma and Sarah. Sarah is Taylor, our Scout Taylor-Compton. So we have Scout playing Sarah, and little Chloe is playing Emma. God, what is she, like 8, 7, 8 in this movie? So she was definitely of the Drew Barrymore kind. I mean, she started, like I said, she was probably 7 or 8 when she made this movie, and she was just phenomenal in it. So you can tell she was going to be a good actress. And the mom, Laurie, she is a fantastic actress too. But so we have them, and they are coming to this place, this town. Um, they're moving up there to an old family shack. Well, it's a big house, but it's still, a mountain house. And it's the only thing left that they own. It turns out that her husband had suffered a lingering long-term illness, and it sucked up all of their money, and he finally died, leaving the only thing that they owned being this family house. So her and her 2 kids show up. stop at the station, this kind of convenience store right before they got to their house, where they see all of these missing posters, and it's like, this is weird. And how many people are around here? Don't go in the woods, and you get all of those kinds of warnings. And they go to the house. They almost hit a guy in the road, but he disappears into the woods, and that freaks them out. So they're at this house. The teen daughter, Sarah, she is, of course, all bitchy and whiny because, who wants to move to deliverance country? You know what I'm saying? And so they start trying to settle in. It's a wonderfully creepy house. The director really was good at, creating this atmosphere, whom I did a disservice to, I guess, by not saying. It was written by Boaz Davidson and directed by J.S. Cardone. So, yeah. So J.S. did really good at creating this atmosphere. So they try to get settled in. We learn at the table with their bitching that, about the dad's death and all of that. You then see that first night is really creepy because you see this kid walking down the hallway with a pickaxe, and he creeps into the mom's room and then cuts her chest open with the pickaxe, which makes her scream and wake up because it was a dream, and she's laying there with her kids. So that was pretty cool, but she got a real good look at his face, which will come up later. So when they wake up the next morning, they're still trying to get their bearings as to what to do. The maintenance man comes to try to get the water going. And while she's down there in the basement, she notices all these boxes of stuff and photographs and things like that. And as she's looking through the photographs, she finds all these pictures of kids. And one of the pictures really impresses her because it's the boy in that dream that she saw, in that nightmare that she had that night. And yet here it looks like a picture from that era, 1910, 1915 kind of era, those kinds of pictures. So it looks just like him. So that kind of freaks her out, and she asked the maintenance man about the photos because he's down there working on the plumbing, and he begins to inform her that yes, those were all child labor. They were mountain people, mountain children forced to work in the mines, and it's as he's explaining it, she hears like a door close or something, and she goes upstairs to check on her daughter, Emma, who has gone. She's gone. So the mom freaks out when she can't find her, and she goes out looking into the woods, whereas she had sent Sarah to that store to pick up some supplies. And Sarah meets the local teens. It's Tim, Sean, and Lisa. These are the convenient, right? But she meets 3 other teens, and they are smart ass to her at first, but they kind of like get to know her, and she agrees to like go and hang out with them later. So we see Emma going through the woods and hearing these children's laughter, and she ends up at the mine, the opening of that mine that where all those kids had died back in 1913, and she keeps talking to them like they're real, she's scared to come in there. Can't y'all come out and play with me? She's especially talking to this Mary person, which we had seen that at the beginning, right? So we do know there is a Mary. So Mom ends up finding her right as she starts to go into the mine. After she had been walking through the woods looking for her, which you could see like dead, there was like dead rabbits hanging in the trees and stuff from wire or from string. It was a very Blair Witch looking situation out there. But okay. So the mom ends up finding her, like I said, at the beginning of the at the entrance to the mine, and she gets her out. But they end up kind of getting lost, her and the mom. Um, so they can't really find their way out. And we are introduced to this cabin. Because, I mean, earlier she had seen, like, blood on her door. Or what looked like, blood. And painter blood, red painter blood. So we then see this sort of mountain man played by Ben Cross. His Hanks is his name, we find out later. But he is like sitting there praying with rosary beads and stuff, and he's got like you know intravenous vein line in his arm, and he's like draining his blood into jars. So that kind of tells us where that blood came from, and so as they're walking about lost, the mom tells Emma not to be afraid. She says she's not because, Mary wouldn't hurt her and things like that. So the mom's usually just kind of like blowing all of this off for right now. In the meanwhile, we see the maintenance man driving down the road where he thinks he sees something, but he doesn't, and he makes his truck hydroplane, sort of, and he goes off and hits a tree, and he gets out to try to look at it, where we see our first kill, which is a kid um, who like bashes him with a shovel and starts like cutting him up and stuff. So that was a pretty cool kill, actually. And the mom ends up running into uh, that guy, the cabin where that mountain man was draining his blood. She ends up finding that and knocks on the door, and they go in there, where she tells him that they were lost and that they didn't know what to do. And he's like, "What are you doing out in the dark?" and stuff like that. And he ends up telling her, he tells her to just follow the two trail down, and it'll go right past your house, because she had went the long way through the woods to find her daughter at that mine. So he ends up telling her that he is the one who put the blood on her door and kept her safe, but she didn't have to thank him. Well, she was like, I would kind of appreciate it if you didn't do that. And he's like, "It's okay, you don't have to thank me." And so that was kind of like his mindset. Um, so Sarah goes back to town with the new teens that night, and Emma keeps talking about Mary to the mom, and the mom continues to investigate those boxes of pictures and the articles that are stored down there in the basement, where she's reading about the mine accident. And that's when we first get to see this pack of kids going through the woods. Um, so while Sarah is partying with the teens out in this field somewhere, we are seeing these kids roam through the woods. And there's, like I said, there's like 25 of them. And I really like this pack, because basically what they are, I don't I don't know what you would call them, because I don't know what they call a ghost zombie vampire altogether. It's got to be some new interesting word, but that's what they are. And so yeah, we get to see Mary and Emma's room. When the mom comes and checks on her and the door closes, you actually see that little girl Mary standing behind the door. She's real, and that's what I meant by they're ghosts, but they're zombies, but they're vampires. Um, they're a new thing, you know, but they are real. They're actually real. So they're not like Casper kind of ghosts. Um, and they're not necessarily zombies, but they are. And they're definitely vampires. You know, they only come out at night and they feed off of people and animals and anything else. So, I mean, it's not just people. So they're like cannibals, but they're also vampires. And they're also, you know, so they fit the criteria for ghost, zombie, and vampire. So I don't know really what to call them. All I know is that they're cool as hell. So um, you see Hanks, the mountain man. He like goes in there and takes a pig up to the mansion. Remember the mine disaster? The Carlton mansion. Carlton was the guy that owned all of this way back then. And he is the one, that mansion is where he lived. And so you see Hanks take a pig and tie it up outside, and then you see a couple of the kids up in the window. And they come out and grotesquely kill it and begin devouring it, drinking its blood and eating it, and all kind of nasty stuff like that. So it seems that he is taking these animals and feeding these kids, possibly to keep them from killing humans, you know? So Sarah gets dropped off from her little adventure with the teens, and the next day um, the mom goes up to the store to call another plumber because remember we saw that one get killed and eaten. So the mom is up there at the store when she runs across this really rude asshole of a guy whom the teller tells her that that's Mr. Carlton. Now, of course, not the one from back then, but his descendant. So, and tells how that he is there. He's the one that's been buying up the local property, and that he's going to tear down the mansion and turn it into a fancy hotel. So that's his plan and the reason for this character. So by this time, with all of the talk about and all that she has seen, the mom actually starts to give credence to, you know, the fact that this Mary person must exist. She's looks like somebody had been sleeping on her daughter's bed when they moved in, and it like had coal dust on it. You know, so mom sees the daughter out near the woods again and goes out there and kind of gets on to her. I told you to stay away from there. But she hears talking or something, so she ends up going through, and they're actually very close to that mansion. It's only right around the corner. So she hears talking and stuff. She goes up there and actually walks into the mansion and runs into that Carlton guy, whom kind of is very stuck up, tells her, you know, what are you doing here? Yes, you've met me, now get the hell out. And then, you know, she's like, yeah, I heard you was going to, you know, make this into a hotel and all. And we live right down there, right around the corner. And he then proceeds to tell her, oh, that's good. Y'all have got 2 weeks to get out. So she's like, no, this is our place. I have the deed. Now, this is when we learn some more of the story, because he said it's a miner's deed, and that means nothing. The land is all mine. So we have that explained a little bit. It turns out that the landowner could give deeds to like employees, like workers, but it's a weird kind of deed. You own it, but you don't really own it. You own it if and when the owner or their ancestors die out. So you own it as long as you're their slave, is basically what it is. Leave it to the U.S. government to find some way to continue that thing. Um, but yeah, so they had that. So this kind of freaks her out, and she's like, well, it doesn't matter because he'll be fighting me for it either way. So, so after that argument, and they have 2 weeks to leave, that's when Hank explains it all to her. Hanks explains it all to her about the deeds, and that the only way for them to retain their property is if the landowner, the and ancestors that die out. So he has to die, or they're going to have to leave. Now, back down in the basement and everything, um, as she's continued to do all of this investigation into the articles, papers, and deeds and pictures, she then just discovers that these are her family by marriage anyway. That Mary was a relative of her husband. Her daughters are relatives of that little girl Mary, and that Hanks is a relative of a couple of the other kids that were killed. So, um, Laurie's kids, Laurie that plays the mom, her kids are actually blood kin to members of this pack. So is Hanks. He is also blood kin to some of the members of this pack of children, which makes you kind of understand that that's the reason why he keeps his door bloody with his blood. That's the reason he went down there and bloodied their door, was to let the children know that this is your relative. Now, he really didn't have to, because Mary and Emma are friends. Her mother doesn't know it's real. She thinks she's a make-believe, but we know that Mary is actually a real zombie vampire ghost thing. And so yeah, she realizes, that they are all kin. And Sarah goes out with her friends again that night. They are attacked by the kids, and that's a really good kill scene, is when those kids attack the teens out there. They get all 3 of them. They get both of the boys and the girl. Only Sarah gets out by driving the car away. And the movie has really heated up by this point, and that kill scene is phenomenal. That is it spooked me. That's the kills in this movie are really good. But so she gets away, and one of the contractors up at the mansion, he is attacked and killed in an ugly way by the kids. So Sarah gets away in the car, makes it back home, tells the mom. Emma, however, has disappeared again, the little girl. She's disappeared again, so her and Sarah, especially after knowing all of this, that these kids are real. Sarah witnessed the attack, so the mom now is completely on board with it all. They go down into the mine, and they don't find anything. They end up coming out and seeing the pack, and they begin running from the pack, where they are almost hit in the road by Carlton and another of his contractors. They try to get in, and he's like, "Get out of my car." Really stuck up. I wanted him dead, but that's, everybody wanted him dead. But the kids then start trying to attack the car, and Carlton drives away, but then he stops and gets out. And the girls, the mom and Sarah, they run off into the woods because they're like, we're not staying here. So Carlton and his other little contractor, they get out because they're pissed off because he like hurt their Mercedes or something. So he's got to get out and confront these little kids, and they end up like trying to shoot them, and the kids just get right back up because they're, zombie vampires, right? So that guy ends up, what did they do? They got they got the other contractor, and the girls, of course, Sarah and her mom, they end up running up to Hank's and telling Hank what's going on. So Hanks lets them in. He starts saying, I told you about all of this, and he explains a little bit more to us that the reason that they haven't been hurt is because they know their own blood, they know their own kin, and that they are only what they are because of what happened to them, and that they, are after vengeance every night. It's a pack of little zombie vampire children who are after vengeance for their own murder by the people of this town and the Carlton family. So about that time, Carlton does show up at the door. He wasn't killed, and they, Hanks doesn't want to let him in because he knows this is what the kids want, But she it convinces him to let Carlton in, which he does, and then they all try to, make a break for it. They can't get the truck started, so Carlton, he had already fled, like assholes or cowards. He had already fled and was hiding in the barn anyway. But they ended up trying to leave in the truck, which is what I hope was going to happen. But instead, they end up, the truck won't crank, so they end up having to go into the barn where Carlton is. They don't know where he's at in there. And then, of course, the kids, they come up and start attacking, And Hanks, man, he had been shooting them like left and right. It was like that was a scene while they were trying to get to the barn. But the kids keep coming, and they come into the barn and they bust open the door, and that's when it all changes, because Carlton, he's up in the hayloft, right? He's up in the loft, and he's like, if any of you come up here, I'll shoot you. And so they're down there, and they're sort of like face to face with the kids, and the three of them, I guess Hanks finally understands and like gets the idea, and he tells them like, look, and he sets his gun down. But I mean, then why wouldn't you, right? I mean, because the shit's over. But he sets his gun down, and he's just like, look, we're their blood, we're their kin. The only reason that they would hurt us is if we try to stand between them and what they want, which is that asshole up there. So they're like, okay. So they just stand still. He tells them not to move. And so this little parade of little zombie kids come walking by. They go up there, and that was a cool scene. They're eating him, and meanwhile Sarah and the mom and Hanks are standing right below it, so like it looks like Carrie, blood is falling down all over them, and they're just standing there taking it, because where are they going to go? There's a whole bunch of kids right there in front of them. And then they sort of part ways, because you hear Emma call her mom and say, it's me, Emma. So Emma was actually with them. So they all run, and there's this little reunion, and the kids allow it. The ghost zombie vampires allow it. And, you know, Emma says they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to hurt anyone anymore. They've now got their vengeance. This is what they want. So you're not really sure what that means. They're not going to hurt anyone anymore. You know, you're like, well, they didn't fade away or anything. They're still standing there. They just seem a little bit better now. They're not angry or trying to eat them, put it that way. So, after the reunion, you know, everybody seems to be okay. And you see the mom and the two kids, they pack up their stuff and they leave. And as they're driving out of town, you know, the the mom is like, or the kids are like, you know, why didn't we sell the house? And she's like, well, you know, because it's all that we have of your dad's, and it's part of history, our history, and it can always be there because whether we like it or not, our blood is in these hills. So, um, you then see the inside of the mansion, that Carlton mansion, and you see the children in there, and you see Mary sitting on one of the beds, playing with a doll, and you see one of the slightly older little boys comes to the door and shuts it in your face, and the movie ends. Because I guess, you know, the pack is quiet for now, residing in the old mansion. They've took their vengeance, but they didn't fade away. They didn't die. They didn't go away, so they're still there. I would have loved for there to be a sequel, but maybe they're at peace now, but immortal or something. I guess they could just continue to eat Hank's animals, right? Because that's what he had been doing, was feeding them. Um, so I guess they could live without killing humans, and they really don't have to. But then again, why did they? I don't know. They're little monsters because they certainly killed those three teenagers. And they weren't all Carltons, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's definitely left open for a sequel. Of course, this was 2006. They haven't made one yet. You know, I don't think they will. But I absolutely adore this movie. It is so dark and what you would expect of a woodland slasher, although it's not a slasher. Well, I don't know. Getting chopped up by shovels and pickaxes and stuff it was pretty slasher-esque. But it was more, like I said, of a zombie vampire vengeance story. But I absolutely love the cinematography in this movie. Like I said, the actors, you definitely saw, you know, if you're a fan of Chloe's, or if you're a fan of Scout Taylor-Compton, this is one of their first movies. You know, I guess Scout looks about 17 in this movie, and Chloe looks about 8. So this was way before Let Me In or any of that. So yeah, Wicked Little Things, one of the 8 films to die for. And yes, I'm very, very, very happy to see this movie. I was very, very happy to see this movie, and I'm very, very happy to own this movie. And yeah, if you're a fan of that genre, or if you're a fan of horror in general, really you should try to find this movie and add it to your collection, because Chloe and Scout are absolutely great. The mom is great. Um, Even the teenagers were great. Carlton was an asshole. He was great. Ben Cross was great. Um, there's absolutely nothing low budget or B movie about this as far as acting and atmosphere and goes. The I really, really liked it. I really, really liked this movie. It's really great. Wicked Little Things, 2006. Thank you for joining me once again, and I will see you in the next one. I be doing The Rental from 2020 in my next video, which I will not be filming tonight. And I will see you in that. Now, always remember and never forget, Chucky loves you. No. Also, well, yeah, he does. But also remember, you are a very special and unique person. Don't let anybody tell you differently. No matter what the world is doing to you or saying to you, you are the only one of you. Yes. And keep rocking very, very hard. And keep screaming, but only when appropriate. And I will see you in the next video. Love, love, love this movie. You've got to have it. Wicked Little Things if you're a collector. See you later, Gator. Bye-bye.